Most of us have been conditioned not to take a risk. People ask me all the time, what does it take to be happy? And I always tell them it's really simple. One word, progress. Progress equals happiness. If you keep growing, you're going to feel alive. And if you keep growing, you're going to have more to give. And when you're growing and giving is when life is magnificent. It doesn't matter how many statues, Oscars they give you, or Emmys, or how much money you have in the bank. We've all seen people have all those things, and I get the phone call because they're depressed, or somebody commits suicide in that area. So it's really an inner game, and I think that's what's missing for us today. Everybody's focusing on the outside world, and how there's a lot of things in the outside world you'll never be able to control. You can influence, but you can't control it. This, your mind, your emotions, your body, you have 100% control over what you do with these things, and that's where the game is won. You win the inner game, then you win the outer game. But a lot of people spent their life trying to win the outer game, they won, and they're miserable. So to me, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And then so many people are focused on success still, which to me is like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like success is getting what you want. Fulfillment is living what you're made for. You know, and it's like fulfillment and success, they're not even the same universe. And there's nothing wrong with going for success, but you really got to figure out what you're made for, and nobody knows in the beginning. So you start where you are and you do what's in front of you, do what's next, and you keep growing until you start to discover, hey, this is my real passion, this is my real hunger and drive, and it can change. People go for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they usually question their business, their career, their body, their relationships. And then one of two things happens. They change direction and feel renewed, or they go, no, I got a great deal here, what the hell's wrong with me? And they recommit and they get stronger. But that's life. And if you don't grow, I don't give a damn how much you got going for you, you're going to be miserable. If you look at a person's life, most people major in minor things. Jim Rohn, my teacher, used to say that to me all the time, meaning they know about all kinds of things that don't matter. But there's maybe a half dozen things that matter most. There's your body, there's your emotions, there's your relationships, there's your finances, there's your career or your sense of mission or your business. And then there's the spiritual side of life. And so I've always taught on all those areas, but in 2008, when all hell broke loose the first time, I've worked with Paul Tudor Jones, one of the top 10 financial traders for now 25 years, 26 years. And so I knew a little bit in this area. Most people don't know. I know the details of everybody who's made it from nothing to multi-billionaire. And they all did it different ways. And I'm good at pattern recognition, and I'm good at pattern utilization. In fact, I would say to your audience, in 2040, which sounds like a long way from now, 18 years ago like that, your mind will be blown. Half the jobs we have today, according to Oxford and a variety of other universities, are going to be gone. They're replaced by robotics, by algorithms. You know the game. And so the bottom line is you need to be good at pattern recognition, and that's what gets somebody strong at anything. I mean, you look at, why is Amazon doing so well? He realized one pattern was valued over anything else, convenience. Right? If you look at Tom Brady, a friend of mine, he's got pattern recognition like nobody else at 43 years old. He's able to do things no one dreamed could be done. He's got more Super Bowl rings than any team. So I said, I want to go to the best people on earth and see what do they see that none of us see. What's the pattern? Then you got to learn pattern utilization. It's one thing to see it, it's another thing to use it. And then if you're good after a while, you get to pattern creation. It's like if you learn to play the piano, most people play other people's music, and there's a point you've learned so much that you're able to create. And I think those three skills are the most important skills. So I look at the areas that matter most and say, who already has that extraordinary pattern recognition utilization? So I go to Ray Dalio, who's returned more money to investors than anyone alive. He's going to have a different level of understanding than the average person. And because I immerse myself so much, most of these interviews are supposed to be 30 minutes, and the average one was 3.5 hours. And so, but like Ray Dalio is now a dear friend of mine. I can pitch and catch with him because I came so over-prepared, and because I could, again, not just catch the ball he threw, but pitch it back. And so to me, that's what I did. I did for total immersion. It was a 3.5-year project, and then expanded. I wrote, Unshakable after that because I saw what was going to happen in the markets, and I wanted people prepared. I looked for who are the people producing the greatest results, not who can talk a good game, who's producing the result. A lot of people can talk about it, it's interesting. I'm a results guy, and I believe in modeling. My original teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, you probably heard of, and he used to always say, success leaves clues. If you want something, make it a study, immerse yourself. So when I wrote Money Master the Game, I said, okay, I've been coaching Paul Tudor Jones, one of the top 10 traders for 25 years. I know more than most people ever know in a lifetime, but I want to know it all. So I'm going to interview 50 of the smartest financial people on earth. Ray Dalio, Carl Icahn, like Warren Buffett. I want to interview people that started with nothing and became multi-billionaires, and they're all different. But my whole belief is you look for, there's like 3 skill sets that we all should have if we're great, and you're really good at these, Jim. I'm not throwing smoke your way, it's just the truth. What's made you great, what makes me great, what made everything take off for any type of business or life is understanding pattern recognition. If you understand pattern recognition, you know what to do with finance. If you understand pattern recognition, you know what to do in business. If you're great at pattern recognition with music, you can do an amazing job. If you're good at pattern recognition with dancing, you can move your body in ways most people never dream of. The people who become masters at pattern recognition, but then pattern utilization, they recognize the pattern, but then they use it. Those are the people that have extraordinary lives. And then there is 1/3 level, and that is pattern creation, where you literally start. You played other people's music so much, and now you know enough that now you're able to create your way of doing things. And I think those 3 skill sets are there. So my process is, who's the best in the world on earth, and how to get access to them. And at this stage of my life, that's not that difficult to do. But even with the money book, I knew some of them, but then I'd say, listen, I'd get 4 or 5 people I knew to refer me, and I'd say, give me 30 minutes. My average interview was 3.5 hours. I remember Jack Bogle, who's now passed away, who created Vanguard, saying, I invited Tony Robbins into my house for 30 minutes, and 3.5 hours later, I had the most probing interview of my entire career, because, I'm pulling those tools out. And once they saw the level I was playing the game at, then they wanted to help. And that's, now Ray Dalio's a good friend of mine. So the people I have access to that I can pitch and catch with, because I immerse myself and because I learned from all the people around them, it gave me a greater base. So that's what I do with anything. But then I try to take that complexity, like finance, with all these people and all the different approaches. Some are macro traders, some are value traders, etc. And say, what are the common denominators? How do we simplify that so we can actually use it, so you can follow through? And that's my process.
I just hate to see people limited. I hate to see people suffering. I've suffered enough myself. I don't want anybody else to suffer. And I'm lit up by being able to see people really take control of their life. We can't control everything, obviously. There are things beyond our control. But there's so much within our control that people give up because they're afraid, or they don't want to fail, or they're just pissed off or frustrated or overwhelmed or stressed. And so what I've managed to do is to take fundamental principles that can change the way you think and the way you feel and the way you behave, your finances, your body, your emotions, your relationships. I've been obsessed with principles that can make that happen. But I'm pretty good at creating an environment where I create a community very quickly, where 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people in a room for 3 or 4 days with me. People who wouldn't sit through a 3-hour movie because someone spent $300 million on it, and you've been there. I'll have 15, 20,000 people there for 50 hours in a weekend, and nobody leaves. They can vote with their feet, and they get their money back anytime they want. They don't. It's a stadium full of people who become alive, and they're different religions, different backgrounds, different belief systems, different sexual preferences, different political views, and yet we come together for a higher good. And to me, that's the most extraordinary experience. But there's an energy to it also, because ideas, when people say knowledge is power, it's a lie. Knowledge is not power, it's potential power. Execution trumps knowledge every day of the week. And my job is to get people to execute. When you get people to execute, they get momentum. And when they get momentum, it's self-fulfilling, right? Okay, I know who I am now. I know what I'm capable of. And you tend to go to higher and higher levels of contribution, of impact, and success. I start with the mind and emotions, and to me, that's not, I don't tell people to believe spiritually or religiously, but I believe prayer is a very useful thing. Reminding yourself you're not the center of the universe, and asking for guidance and help and everything to do that. I personally believe that, but not everybody does, and I don't tell people they have to, but it starts there. But there's also, when you have a spiritual side of your life, there's a lot less anxiety, because you believe there's something greater than yourself, and then you do your part. Like you said, I use a similar metaphor. I say it's, trusting God and type of camels, that type of thing, right? But what most people don't know is the power of their mind. So there's an entire last 2 chapters of the book. If you don't want to read anything else, I'd say please read those 2 chapters, because if you do everything physically well, you don't manage your mind and emotions, you'll get sick.
It really comes down to anyone can learn anything if it's important enough to you. What makes it important to me is not just my own life. It's like if I have a problem, my shoulder, my neck, whatever, and I can solve it, I know that there are millions of other people who can be helped by it. So it's like my drive is not just for me. That wouldn't be enough, because it's easy to meet your own needs. It's not that difficult. But if you can find something that you care about more than yourself, your daughter, your son, your family, your business, your mission, your community, whatever it is, that's really the secret to energy and vitality and strength and really learning. And I think the other thing is complexity is the enemy of execution. One of the things I want to do with people during this challenge is take things that seem so complex and make them so simple so you do it. If you have a business and you got this huge, complex plan, you hired a giant consulting firm, they put it all together, it never gets implemented. You know it, you've been in your companies. Why? Because they make it so complex and it's somebody else's plan. What I really want to do for people on this challenge is get it really simple, things you can do right now to change your life. You can go to experience it that day, and then you get momentum. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and all of a sudden now what used to be hard to do is easy to do. And I think for anyone, you got to understand anyone can learn anything if you can just break it down to its simple core. And that's what I try to do most.
It's one of the things I'm behind. I have about a dozen really important things to me. Feeding people is most important to me.
Yeah.
Providing fresh water. I do that in India for 250,000 people a day. Personally, I'm going to get that to 1 million people in the next few years. Wow. It's just about infrastructure, freeing, boys and girls, women, 80% of them. I mean, there's a new child abducted every 30 seconds. There's 6 million people in slavery around the world, children in slavery, sexual slavery. We've saved about 3,800 just in the last couple of years. I've run on the operations myself undercover, but I work with Underground Railroad because they're former SEAL Team 6, CIA, FBI, and we teach the local government what to do to capture these people. So it's not just save some kids right now, but showing them what to do for the future. But I'm also, I'm involved with so many different things, and my answer is if I think it's core to humanity, then I'm interested. Food is, air is, I've planted 10 million trees in the last year and a half. I'm more fortunate to have my own private jet, but I'm conscious of that. So it's like, how many trees does my whole lifestyle take? It's about 3,000 trees. So I said, I don't want to plant, 10 million. I said, screw it, I'll plant 100 million. So I planted 10 million already. I'm on course to do the 100 million, just like feeding 1 billion people. So it's the things that matter. That's what God's. But I do things spontaneously. I was in San Francisco, and I read in the newspaper that while I'm there, I was there to see Mark Benioff, and I see that the toughest part of San Francisco is called the Tenderloin District, and there's these nuns there that feed the poorest of the poor, and they're being evicted. And it's one of the richest cities in the world, more billionaires there, tech billionaires than anyone. No one's doing anything. So I went over, knocked on the door, introduced myself, found out who the person was that was evicting him, called him up and said, look, I'm an owner too. You have the right to evict anybody, but do you really want to be the hated man in San Francisco? I said, why don't you let him stay 9 months? I'll get him out within 9 months. I'll pay you the additional rent. And I did, and then, the nuns are like, they're looking for a place to lease, and all of a sudden I get a call from Realtree because they're looking for a place to buy, and I called the nuns and said, you have some money I don't know about? God will provide, as they guarantee. So I bought them a place there, and my friend Mark Benioff then bought them a home to live in. So, I do things spontaneously. I love those things as well, but the secret of living is giving. I know it sounds corny, but I had a tough time in my life. I remember I was driving on the street in this 1968 Volkswagen. I was working so hard, and I was so frustrated. Things weren't going the way I thought they should, and I was like, what's wrong? And then I pulled it to the side, and I still have it today, this written journal about the secret to living is giving. I started crying because I lost the giving mode. I've gotten into business mode. And to me, like I said, business is a spiritual game. If you're focused on giving, if you're doing more for your client, your customer, or anybody else, you will dominate. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And that's what I've been able to do with my 50 plus companies.
That's really the essence of it. I used to have all these fancy things, but it's like today I just want to help. If I can be helpful to somebody, it gives me tremendous joy. And my hats say, be a blessing and you're blessed, right? That's what these little hats are. I don't have a non-religious symbol, like the lucky symbol, but it's amazing how lucky you get when you're working hard to be a blessing. And it's amazing what happens for people. So my life is already so blessed, and whatever happens when I'm gone is gone. But while I'm here, I want to live fully, and I want to touch as many lives and help as many people as I can and keep growing myself.
I don't believe I'm everybody's teacher or I've got it all handled, but I've spent 42 years looking for answers. So when I was growing up, they called me a motivator, they called me a guru, and I hated those terms because I'm not better than anybody else. And I thought, who's influenced my life? I'm an athlete, so coaches did. And I was actually a much better athlete than some of my coaches, but they still were invaluable to me because they saw what I couldn't see because I was in the forest, I was on the court, right? They were outside of it. And so that's why I started calling myself a coach, not a guru. And also because I want people to know there's nobody broken. You don't need to be fixed. You might have some behaviors that don't work. You might have some habits. You might have some thinking habits, emotional habits. And we're the only humans, the only creatures that should say on the planet that can think a thought and get ourselves angry. Think a thought and get worried. Think a thought and get excited. Think a thought and feel grateful. Think a thought and be pissed off. And most of us just don't know how to run the show. And so what I try to do with that documentary is kind of a 2-hour summary of a 6-day seminar I do called Date with Destiny. First of all, I don't think it's possible, but it is. You get upset that fast. You get wired that fast. You get conditioned that fast. But to see 5 and 10 years later, people's lives are changed. It's important for people to see